time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep, to everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time of love and a time of hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven.
Thank you, Doug Michigan. Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was a gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy to the human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. Thank you, Beverly. How is grief like a mosaic? As no two mosaics can ever be exactly the same, so no two experiences of grief are the same. As each mosaic is particular, fashioned by many individual elements, configured in unique ways, so each person's experience of grief is particular. It is formed by the unique interplay of all aspects of one's life, one's past, one's relationships, one's way of making meaning, one's experience of the divine, one's history of losses, one's sense of community, one's cultural perspectives, and so on. So, welcome everybody, and thank you for making the journey here, some from really far away, and some surprises. And yeah, I asked Doug to help me with this, and I really felt as though, since Donna really wanted to be buried in Norwich, that I felt called to do this. And I'm so glad so many people wanted to be here. I am Donna's niece. She was my aunt. She was my father's sister. And she and I, on and off over the years, were close. And you know, she stood up with me at my wedding. I was close with her when I was young. There were gaps, but I was especially close after my dad died and she was diagnosed with cancer. So, I'm just going to ask, just so we know who's here, you know, just say your name, your last name, and just how you're related. That'd be great. You want to go first, Steve?
Yeah, I'm Steve Everett. I'm Christy's husband, so I'm like she's my aunt by marriage.
And I'm Sally Chirlin. My husband was buried within the last few years down next to my stone and my family's stone. I asked him if he'd rather be up here, and he said no, he wanted to be next to me, and I was glad that he felt that way, because it hasn't been that long since he's been gone. And his sister, he and his sister were very different. turned out that Donna was someone, when she was a little girl, when I was a teenager, I was about the only one that Helen and Maury could get to babysitter because everybody else had quit. And I'm the oldest of three girls, and she wasn't going to do anything that I couldn't handle. So, and they lived very close to the swimming pool back in the day. And she used to go over there. She really, you'd have thought she was my kid. Because she was mouthy. She'd go over there and tell those lifeguards that Sally's the only one that can handle me. I heard that, honest to God, I thought, well, I get in trouble when I'm doing that with my younger sisters at home. I'm not getting in trouble when I'm doing it with her. But we were close with her growing up because really, I guess I'm the only one that didn't ever quit the job. And I really, well, probably because I was the oldest of three girls, but I really liked her. And who knew that I was going to be her sister-in-law someday? And she and Don were nothing alike. She was actually probably a lot more like me than she was her brother. Because I don't know that I'd have married her brother. He'd been more like me.
Just doing introduction. This is just introduction, so let's keep going.
Oh, my daughter doesn't want me to keep talking. Okay, that's it for now.
My name's Gabby Collins, and I hang out with Sally sometimes.
And Kirsten's around. There's Kirsten.
Hi.
I'm Doug Mishkin, a cousin of Donna's, and I'm cracked up by Sally.
And I am Wendy Janis, and I'm married to Doug Mishkin.
And I'm Erin Mitchell, and I'm married to Donna Chirlin.
I'm Declan Chirlin, and I'm his son.
I'm John Chirlin, and Donna was my aunt, my dad's sister.
I'm Bruce Beadle, friend of Donna's.
And I'm Diane Levine, cousin. I was Diane Chirlin. Beverly Cohen Champagne, and my mother and Donna's father were brother and sister, first cousins.
I'm Bob Champagne.
I'm Jeanette Haynes, and I'm a friend of Sally's.
I'm Pete Smith. I was classmate of Donna since 5th grade.
I'm Christopher Matthew. Donna's my friend.
Ben Matthew. Donna's my mom.
Jen Smith, and Donna's was my friend.
I'm Belinka Rose, Matthew Kozik, and Grandma.
Emily Matthew, Donna's daughter. So as you listen, thanks everybody, and as you listen to these upcoming readings, just think about what you might want to share about Donna, and it's totally your choice. And Beverly's going to read next.
When you remember me, it means that you have carried something of who I am with you, that I have left some mark of who I am on who you are. It means that you can summon me back to your mind, even though countless years and miles may stand between us. It means that if we meet again, you will know me. It means that even after I die, you can still see my face, and you will know me. You will still see my face and hear my voice, and speak to me in your heart, for as long as you remember me, I am never entirely lost. And you want
Thank you.
And memories of now or
no?
Later.
No. Yeah. I'll let you know. So those of us, Diane and John and Aaron, Declan, and Steve, why don't we stand? We're going to do the next. This is a reading, and it's kind of a nice reading where you all respond. We're all going to take turns saying a line, and then you'll, in unison, just say, we remember them. Okay? So I'm going to start, and then those of us that we all have our parts. Okay. So the reading is We Remember. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we all say, we remember them.
At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter,
we remember them.
At the opening of the buds
and the rebirth of spring.
We remember them.
At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer.
We remember them.
At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn.
We remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them.
As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength,
We remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart,
We remember them.
When we have joy, we crave to share.
We remember them.
When we have decisions that are difficult to make.
We remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs.
We remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. So, this is your opportunity, if you'd like, to say a few words about Donna. Anything that you'd like to share, a memory.
If it's okay, I could start.
That'd be great.
Okay. So I'm going to follow up with what Sally was saying before. So Donna and I were only a couple years apart in age, I think 2. And we used to spend vacation during the summer. One year I would come down here to Norwich for a week, and the next year she would come to Albany for a week. Well, I remember this one time that I came to Norwich and she locked me out of the house. It wasn't so funny at the time. I was like, I can see, in my mind's eye, I can see myself running around their house, you know, and she was at the windows, and I was like making faces at me. You know? But eventually I did get back in. Yeah, and wonderful times, wonderful memories of the Jewish holidays. My mother's sister Mary, and my family and her family lived. They lived upstairs. They lived upstairs. We lived in a 2-family house, and my Aunt Mary lived upstairs. My family lived downstairs. And every Jewish holiday, especially Passover, was our favorite. All the family with all the kids would come, and we'd have the Seder upstairs in my Aunt Mary's house. It was, and in the 2-family house, there was a dining room and living room. They were like one big room. So the table would start at one end of the dining room, all the way to the other end of the living room. And they would, Uncle Morris and Aunt Helen and Donna. Sometimes Don didn't come. A lot of times Don didn't come, but Donna was always there. And it was before you moved to California, you guys were there too. Diane and Judy and all the first cousins. We had a wonderful, it was just something that we all, and I talk about with these are my daughters, that we all talk about growing up. And those are wonderful memories.
I'm going to try to talk loud. I'm pretty good at being loud. When Donna was little, I'd say 4-ish maybe, and I would have been 15 maybe, I don't know, but I probably should have held out for bigger babysitting crossing my pond, because it was hard for Helen and Maury to get anybody to come and stay with Donna, because she'd scare them away. Well, she didn't scare me away. And they lived right near the pool, and one of the funniest things that I remember, she'd go over there and tell the lifeguard, they were only about half a furlong to walk from her house to the pool, and she'd say, and she'd be all very proud about, I scare all the babysitters away. The only one I don't scare away is Sally. She knows how to handle me. And I thought that was so funny because it was right on. I'm the oldest of 3 girls, and I thought there's no way she's getting over on me, no matter if I have to shake the jeebers out of her. And so we got along fine, and our birthdays were close together. And then Don and I got married, and she was part of the wedding ceremony along with my sisters. I was always very fond of her, and as far as I was concerned, all they had to do was just turn her over to me, and she'd have been a perfect angel.
Do you have anything you want to share?
Oh yeah, you know, my memories of Donna, first and foremost, she always seemed to be smiling. I think if you see pictures of her, her obituary picture, the wedding picture that Sally mentioned, to me, she was always very outgoing and loving. And I really only knew her from when Christy and I got together, 25 plus years ago, and we went down to visit. And then later, and as Christy said, she stood up for her at our wedding, and appreciated that, her presence in our life. When our older son, Max, was going to be born, and she was still living in the Chicago area, she and Lee had come up, and it was great, to have them with us.
Oh, for the baby shower.
Yeah, exactly, for the baby shower. And then when she and Paul moved to Florida, and our boys were probably 9 and 7, we were going to go down to Disney World, and we went and stayed with Donna and Paul in that area. And again, very forthcoming with love and food and merriment. And so that's really. And even when Christy and I saw her last March, we'd gone down to Florida to do something, and then went to the other side to see her. And she was in the hospital or in some care, but was aware and again smiling and loving. And so that's really my memory of her, was just how great she was for me and to me. I love her and I miss her.
So we moved to California when I was 8 years old, so Donna was also 8 or 9. And so I don't have too many recollections of her growing up. But when we were in California, she became my imaginary playmate. Because when I'd be mad at my sister, I'd think, I could imagine my mother sending Judy somewhere and have Donna come and live with us. And Donna would do everything I wanted to do. Apparently not. But I told her that many years later, when the time you guys came out to California in the 90s, you and Don and Donna and Paul came out to California, and we all went to Universal Studios together. I don't know if you remember, but I was telling her that she thought that was pretty funny. But the last time I really saw her I was in Puerto Vallarta in January about 7 years ago on a cruise, and I spent the day with her instead of touring around. So it was a lovely day, and that's my fondest memory of her.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Chrissy. So I have very clear memories from way back when of Donna when I was a kid, and the memories are all about laughing and smiling. And my parents would host a Seder, and Donna would come with her kids. And I remember one Seder in particular, because our Seders were really, we would read a line from the Haggadah, Passover service, and then there would be 20 minutes of joking and kidding, and this was because my father was that kind of guy. He was a wise guy, and he shared that with Donna, who was also a wise guy. My mother would sit there, and she wanted some semblance of a real Passover Seder, and she had no chance of getting that. And so there was one Seder in particular, and I'm sure where Donna was a co-conspirator in this, right? Because she was, misbehaving like my father and the rest of us. And the point of this is going to be that, Ben, I have harbored so I think Donna would appreciate my getting this off my chest now. At one of these Seders where you guys were there, my mother, in the midst of all this laughing and joking and misbehavior, said, you know, this Seder, like nobody could learn the story of Passover from this Seder. And then she said, you remember this? All right? She said, now Ben has been coming to these Seders for how many years, Ben? Ben, can you tell the story of Passover? And Ben, of course, chokes and says, actually, no, I can't. And I then said, I don't know how many Seders Ben's been to, but this is his last one. So, Donna, you know, she was a co-conspirator in this, and she got us in trouble, and I'm forever grateful.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Keep hearing that she was mischief. She said I had a twinkle in my eye always, and I was like, you know, sometimes I stick my tongue out, and she'd be like, don't you stick your tongue out at your mother. And I'm like, she sticks her tongue out at me. What am I supposed to do? But we visited in Florida. It was so cool. But I saw a sea turtle give birth one time, and I was running, and I came and told Grandma about it, and she always loved talking about animals. And even though she was really sick, she was still talking about animals, and it was really beautiful because she loved life, and she loved the life of her.
Yeah.
She was always looking for, you know, like what animals give us, what we give each other, that love of life, why we do it. She was a funny woman who always wanted to teach me manners, but I just want to hear her stories of mischief. She had a fun life.
Class reunions, I had several people that I really wanted to see, but most of all probably her.
Yeah.
She didn't come often.
Going? Taking a turn?
I'm kind of shy. I don't know if this is very proper to say, but you know, Donna could be outspoken, and at one of these late class reunions, she said, "You know, I can't believe you had 7 kids. You didn't seem that horny."
I can't believe you had 7 kids. She said that to me. I can't believe you had 7 kids. You didn't seem that horny.
We had some connections at the class. We were in the class of 63, and at the 78 reunion, I just graduated from Wharton, and she was at Wharton with her husband. So that was quite a coincidence and interesting. But as I say, we knew each other from 5th grade. I can't match Bruce going all the way back to kindergarten, but she was, you know, in a word, I'd say she was effervescent.
Yes, that's right.
Well, you can tell we're all offended by your inappropriate
So I moved to Minnesota in 1986, and Donna followed shortly to Chicago, and it was like magical for me because I felt like a fish out of water moving to the Midwest, and I was so happy to have her. I mean, Chicago's 6 hours from Minneapolis, but at the beginning there, I went down a lot to Chicago, and I was really grateful that she was there, and it wasn't just like somebody. I mean, it was that Donna who lived, and it's just so weird, the coincidence of that. And I went down there on holidays, and I got to see Lisa and Ben when they were in Wisconsin. I mean, there were enough times that meant a lot to me. And then that time we went down to Florida. I wish we, when my kids, we were both very busy, and I wish I'd seen more of her during those times when I was raising Max and Sam, but I was, that's the way it is. She was always interested in what my boys were doing. I loved that about her. She, those of us who have children, we love to talk about our kids. And Donna always wanted to know what Max and Sam were doing. And especially these last 3 years, where my boys are off doing these kind of cool things, she always wanted to know. And Max's concerts are streamed live, and while she could, she watched those concerts from her bed, from her house, from her hospital bed, and loved it. She loved music. She'd always say, I love that we have a musician in the family. And I'm like, wow, I just loved that, and I don't, my other aunts aren't like that. They don't, it's not, I just loved her enthusiasm. And she always valued going on to college and always wanted to hear what they were doing, and that meant a lot to me. And like I said, once, she first got sick was at my dad's, when she wasn't able to come up to the country club for my dad's memorial, which was in 2021, and she was sick and couldn't come, and then, she broke her hip, and then she found the tumor, and, that's when I started talking to her a lot. And I'm, one of the best trips, I know this sounds weird, but one of the best trips I ever took in my life was to New Hampshire to see her. I was sorry she wasn't at the cabin. She was in care at that time, but to go to Lakewood and Pisaki, and Lee came over, and I got to see Quinn, Cassidy, I got to see Ben, and that was great. And even though she was sick, I was so glad and honored to be there, and I spent a week there. It's life-changing for me to see a loved one that sick, and what I wrote for her memorial down in Florida in October, I just wrote, Donna was amazing. She was such a trooper. She seemed tickled to have me. This was it. This was it. So they moved her out of the hospital at the last minute to the rehab in Laconia, and Paul and I were out on the boat, and we had our cell phones off, and we get off on shore, and he's like, oh my God, they're moving her out to the rehab. And I'm like, what? And we get there, and they are pushing her out of this hospital as fast as they can, and I have the rental car, Paul doesn't have a car, and I literally have to drive her, and I'm kind of nervous. Like, she was sick, but she was tickled to have me drive her. She got in the front seat, as fragile and frail as she was. She didn't act fragile and frail. She was just so happy that I was driving. Paul was a nervous wreck, bossing me around how to drive, and I'm like, whatever. I'm like that too. He sat in the back seat, but the fact that she wasn't worried, she was tickled, and I drove her to the rehab, and I just got to have these opportunities that were awful and just a privilege at the same time. And to be the driver, I'm like, wow. I thought she should have gone in an ambulance, but no. So that was really special. And when we went down in March, I knew it was the last time I was going to see her unless I got my butt down there soon, and I never did see her again. So it was March of 2023, and you know, she was in the hospital and that kind of sucked. And Ben had called me and said, you know, when you go down there, she's not going to be home. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so my son Steve and Sam were with me, and I just walked around the property, and I hadn't been at their house since we brought Max and Sam down like 12 years prior. But I saw all her tchotchkes and all her garden stuff and all her stuff on the wall, all the photos, and I realized that like how much alike we were that way. Like it was really quite moving and kind of wild to go in and see so many pictures of my dad and my grandma. It was wild. And then all the things she had on the wall, these poems. And the one poem, I took pictures of all of them that are framed, you know, those poems and sayings that are old-fashioned she had framed. So this one I just love. It says, "To my pal." And this is just so Donna, because she was a good friend and she had a lot of friends. She had a lot of friends. So it says, "To my pal, does anyone know, does anyone care where you go or how you fare? Whether you smile or whether you sigh, whether you laugh or whether you cry, glad when you're happy, sad when you're blue. Does anyone care what becomes of you? I do, pal. I'll say I do." So, thanks.
We need the young stories. Come on, I know you have them. We need the funnies.
Well, it was too great that
She had
I know
so
Frank.
much fun
If Frank
in her life.
Marabido were here, that would have been good if we could have gotten Frank here. But I saw two of his brothers last night, but Frank and Donna were close.
She used to tell stories about everyone, all the time. Can I say this little thing? It's from a song. But she loved when we make her things. But change like the wind, like the water, like the skin. Change like the sky, like the leaves, like a butterfly. Would you live forever, never die? While everything around passes, would you smile forever, never cry? While everything you know passes, death like a door to a place we've never been before. Death like space, the deep sea, a suitcase. Would you stare forever at the sun? Sigh, never watch the moon rising? Would you walk forever in the light to never learn the secret of quiet night? Still like a stone, like a hill, like a home. Still what I find is you are always on my mind. That's from Big Thief. But she kept like every card, and she'd have pictures of everyone, and she'd have gifts that she would collect over the years shopping, because the woman was a professional shopper. But she'd keep them, you know, until she'd see the people, and you know, she'd see the people, she'd be around. But she loved having fun, and she loved spreading fun and having a new story to tell someone else about the people she loved. She'd be always talking about vacation. I'd be like, vacation from what, Grandma? Like, fabulous. Like, where are you going? Very inspirational. So yeah, more stories at lunch, please.
Okay, so we ready, Doug, to do, this is her monument right here. And a classmate of mine owns Sovereign Monuments, and he did a lovely job with this.
And you've got one.
Doug's going to explain our ritual here. And maybe do we want to have a lovely dear John from Wilson Funeral Home.
So in the Jewish tradition, you have what we call the our service, the service of remembrance. Humans are like a breath. Their days like a passing shadow. Let's read together in page 4. Humans are like a breath. Their days like a passing shadow. In the morning they blossom and renew. At night they fade and wither. So teach us to count our days, that we might gain wisdom. Dust returns to cover the earth as it was, and the spirit returns from whence it came. So one of the Jewish customs is for family and friends who've gathered to fill the grave with dirt using a shovel. And it's said that it's an act of loving kindness because it's the one thing that we can do for our loved one that she cannot do for herself. And so the custom is to shovel in some dirt, and then each person puts the shovel back in the earth rather than hand it to the next person, because in this way we each get to independently do this, just as each of us had our own relationship with Donna. So we each have the chance to do this mitzvah, this commandment, independently. And we typically would say or sing, Oseh Shalom Bimramav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'imru, V'imru, Amen.
Anybody else that would like to? Where do you went, Mom?
No, but I've got something I'd like to
Not yet. Yeah, not yet. Here's Jeff's purchase.
Khalil Gibran here. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path that she has traveled, from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages, and in front of her she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there's no other way. The river cannot go back. No one can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that is where the river will know it is not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean.
Diane, I don't have the order right, so do you mind going next?
Yeah.
Thank you. I believe there are two kinds of grief. The first develops immediately after loss. It's the type that tears at your soul and twists you into knots that you don't think will ever unravel. It's the sinking feeling of loved ones in hospital beds and people whose hands you'll never hold again. The second is the string of yarn once you've untangled it all, and it follows you. It snags on the shadows that look like the silhouette of people you once loved. It catches on the corner of your smile and reminds you that love is a temporary gift. At the end of the day, it's the second grief that saves us, because it ensures we'll never forget how precious life is.
I'd like to ask everybody to come down to that lower part of the cemetery. My husband, Donna's older brother, died not too long ago, within the last 3 to 4 years, and it seems very fresh that he was buried and then Donna was buried here, and I wasn't surprised that she wanted to be buried here. But before you leave, if you knew Don or wanted to do something, you don't need to have dirt or anything like that, but his stone has his birth and death date on it, and you might just give him a salute, and we could lead you down there. It's going to be easy. It's on the way out.
Yep.
And it would be nice if you did. I think most of you knew Don, and I think he'd appreciate it.
Yes, he
What do
would.
I know? But I think it would be a nice thing to do.
So in ending, I want to thank Doug for helping me with this and his beautiful voice. My lovely husband who helped edit this and helped me choose readings and poems and reading himself. And then our beloved funeral director at Wilson, who I adore, John Antonowitz. And then Mark Williams, who's a classmate of mine who helped make Donna's beautiful monument. In closing, I have just a lovely little reading, and then as you want, you can follow us down to look at and view and say hello to my dad. And then you're all invited out to the house for some lunch. So we have some lunch, so please do come out, because I have food and I don't want to have it go to waste. So please come, even if you can only stay for a short time. So, this is Joy Chose You. Joy does not arrive with a fanfare on a red carpet strewn with the flowers of a perfect life. Joy sneaks in as you pour a cup of coffee, watching the sunlight hit your favorite tree just right. And you usher joy away because you are not ready for her. Your house is not as it must be for such a distinguished guest. But Joy cares nothing for your messy home, or your bank balance, or your waistline. You see, Joy is supposed to slither through the cracks of your imperfect life. That's how Joy works. You cannot truly invite her. You can only be ready when she appears and hug her with meaning, because in this very moment, Joy chose you. All right, good job, everybody.
Thank you so much for doing
Yeah,
this,
thank you.
Christy. Beautiful.
All of it.
Really.
And if you didn't get a laminated, John, the Wilson Funeral Home does these, and I love them. I had one for my dad. So if you didn't get one and you want one of Donna, I have several left. John, explain. Hey, John, say hi to everybody. He's just a gem. Say hi and tell how this works.
You can all fill it in if you'd like, or we can take it over. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Traditionally, families kind of fill it in. Yeah.